Welcome to Harvest Podcast, where we dive deeper into Sunday sermon, hear from guests, or stories from the house.
Well, hello, Kevin and Brittanie.
Hello. Yes.
I want to introduce you to Harvest Christian Center.
Yes, I'm so glad to be here.
Yes.
So,
wonderful.
Kevin and Brittanie are headed to an African nation that's far away.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think we can't name it exactly because it's like they're going as, like undercover.
Yes.
Off the Swahili coast.
Yeah,
So the East Coast.
East Africa.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
That's where we'll be.
But they have an amazing story. Maybe some of you this week during Reach Week have met Nick Hester, who is the director of Chi Alpha, which is a college campus ministry, and he is located at Texas Tech in Lubbock. So Nick is a missionary that we've supported for many years, and in fact, all the time he's been there, he's grown an amazing Chi Alpha that reaches the students when they come to campus, and they get saved and they get transformed by Christ. Now, Brittanie, you grew up in the church. You're an Assemblies of God girl since birth.
Since birth.
And in fact, the other day you told us that you told your dad you were going to be a missionary to China someday.
At 5 years old. That's what I told him.
So she's always had a heart for ministry. Are your parents in the ministry or just faithful to church?
Faithful people to church. My dad is working on his all of his stuff, certification to be a pastor. But no, while growing up, they were just faithful believers and faithful people to the church.
And you probably had missionaries come to the church?
All the time. And I was just so enamored by them and all the things they said and did. And so.
Yeah, and so then God called you.
Yep, he did.
And you didn't know how that would all unfold.
No.
So you have been faithful to God your whole life, which is amazing and wonderful. That's a wonderful testimony right there because God has kept you from a lot of things in that way.
Yes.
Faithful to Him. But then Kevin, you ran into Nick and Chi Alpha when you got to Texas Tech, right?
So I actually knew Nick when I was a student at Sam Houston State University.
Okay.
Which is where Nick went to school, where he did his internship at Chi Alpha. And I met some other guys that were small group leaders with Chi Alpha at that point. I would say that I didn't know Jesus really. I knew of him, growing up in the Bible Belt. Definitely heard of him. But it wasn't until I got into college when guys came alongside me and taught me what it really means to walk with Jesus between reading the Bible, prayer, worship, all the things that you do within your Christian walk. I had some guys teach me how to really do that for my own. And then it would have been right after I graduated and finished my schooling, I did the internship with Chi Alpha at Sam Houston, where Nick and I were both at school. And that year I interned was when Nick moved to Lubbock with the team to Texas Tech. And so I stayed there for 2 years. So Texas Tech's third year is when I moved up and joined the team at Texas Tech as a U.S. missionary serving alongside Nick and the crew up there.
Okay, but it was Chi Alpha students which is, this is an amazing thing. So these are students in the ministry in Chi Alpha that go out on campus and just start being friends with other students and pulling you in.
Absolutely.
So tell us about when you first got to college, so it wasn't at Texas Tech, it was down at Sam Houston. But so what was your life like when you first got to college?
Yeah, so looking back at high school, right before I went into college, I would have told people that my identity was rooted in what I wore, the truck I drove, and the sports I played. And so
not uncommon for a young man, probably.
Right? And so when I get into college, my truck doesn't matter anymore because everyone drives. It's a commuter campus. People go to class in pajamas. And my athletic career ended when I got my diploma in high school. And so my identity was a blank slate. And I decided to put it into relationships and dating. And I dated a girl not named Brittanie for about 9 months. And I even saved up money for a ring because I assumed that's what you do when you go to college. That was just what I thought you would do. And it only went 9 months because I found out she was cheating on me. And it left me bitter, broken, and confused.
Yeah.
And with an older roommate, I had access to alcohol so I could suppress pain. And the darkest it got was honestly suicidal thoughts were creeping into my mind. But at the same time, I was in a small group with Chi Alpha guys.
Oh, wow.
And so when I went through that breakup, I remember my small group leader, he woke up early in the morning, like 1, 2 a.m. His wife's making cookies. So I could sit on a couch and cry and share all of what I was feeling. And it was one night when I went to a Chi Alpha service where they preached about hurt and bitterness. Ezekiel 36:26, the Lord taking a heart of stone and creating a heart of flesh. He gives heart transplants to this day. And I gave all that bitterness and hurt back to him. And that led me to where I am now, of not only while I was a student and going into ministry, of trying to love others the way I was loved, but giving me the opportunity to go on mission trips and see the rest of the world, which led us to Africa now.
That's great. So you, before you really were a Christian, you had already started kind of getting involved with Chi Alpha because the guys had befriended you and were inviting you to small group. Just an invite, so easy. You know, and college campuses, students are usually open to meeting new people. And so they invited you, and then there they were when the bottom fell out of your life. And then, so they started sending you on mission trips. That's so great. I'm finding more and more out about Chi Alpha and how wonderful it is and what it does, you know, reaching students. It's a wonderful thing. So you did your internship at Sam Houston. Nick left and became the director at Texas Tech. Yes. You were there for maybe another year or two, and then you came to Texas Tech to do some missions work there. Yes. Did you know at that time that you were going to go somewhere else far in the world, or what?
No, I hadn't really been outside of the country until I went to Texas Tech. So I led in-state mission trips or in-country mission trips in my 2 years before moving up to Lubbock. But my first year living in Lubbock, that summer I led a trip of students to Africa, specifically exactly where we're going.
Oh, wow.
And I even remember going on that trip saying, Lord, I know you might call some of these students, but I know you're not going to call me. And as a U.S. missionary, that was my thought.
Yeah.
But it was because I knew that Lord had me in Lubbock for a specific reason. I had committed, I believe, 5 years of serving at Texas Tech, because I wanted to see 4 years of a generation of a freshman raise up, be discipled, and then be able to disciple others, knowing that I could leave seeing them on a healthy trajectory with Jesus and that they understood discipleship. And so after going there 1 year, COVID hits. And then the year, once COVID lifts and we're able to go back on trips, I get asked to go back to where we're going. And it was great because at that point, Brittanie and I had started dating.
I was going to ask you, when did you come into the picture in his life?
Let me adjust this a little bit.
Yeah, lift that on back.
So it's a long story. If you want to hear more of the story, come find us somewhere.
It'd be a different podcast.
But yes, I came in and became a part of Chi Alpha. I was working with the youth and kids ministries, but I was college age, and met Nick and Paige, and they're like, why don't you just come be a part of life with us, and just be in a small group. So I was in a small group for about a year and a half, became a small group leader. And what's really great is small group leaders have this great fellowship together, that we get together with our friends who are doing the same thing to just be an encouragement. And so that's kind of how me and Kevin got to know each other. I was actually interested in another guy when I first came in.
The story of every young adult's life.
The story of every young adult. But yeah, we just became friends, and over time and over a few years, the Lord just saw it fit for us to get together, and Kevin pursued me really well. But at this point, I was on my way, I was already in the process of going to Africa. And so I was like, you're not going to stand in the way of me going to Africa.
So you had decided you were going to go no matter what, you know.
Yeah, I had already started the process. I'd met with the other workers on the island and knew that was what I was doing. And so I was just kind of I wasn't interested in relationships, didn't want anything to get in the way. But
God was working.
God was
things.
working on Kevin.
Yes, he was.
And
I wonder if those missionaries were like behind the scenes praying,
They might
thinking
have
this
been.
might.
they might have been.
might have
They were
been.
actually, I think, the first people
We were the
told
first people, yeah.
Oh.
that we were dating, because we had both been there a few times, and
They're friends.
yeah. So I had told him before we started dating, I was like, you don't have to be called to the island right now, but as long as you're open, and over these next few months, we can seek the Lord together. And when we went on those 2 trips, he went on a trip
With
2
Chi
weeks
Alpha
before me,
students.
and then I went on a trip with the district, and the Lord spoke to both of us in different ways, and came back, and we had been dating for 3 months at that point, and then 3 months later we were engaged. So
Wow.
6 months to the day.
yes, yeah.
Wow. And so, how long have you been married now?
About 1 year and 7 months, a little over.
Okay. So, from that, like dating and getting the ring, when did you both? Because you were headed to this island.
yeah.
So then you were like, okay, God.
Yes, and so I remember when I first really got saved in college, and I was praying about my future. I told the Lord I was a radical little believer. I said, Lord, if you want me to go to the leader of ISIS and tell him about you, I'll do it. But the Lord didn't ask me to do that. He asked me to stay within Chi Alpha to be a U.S. missionary, and so I said, all right, I'll do that. And years had gone by. And we were having a 72-hour prayer night on campus, so just 3 days in a row, or longer than that. But we were on campus doing that when the Lord spoke to me one night during one of those prayer sessions that I had grown comfortable being a U.S. missionary. Not that anything is wrong with that. I firmly believe in Chi Alpha and U.S. missions.
Yes.
Well, Chi Alpha is reaching students, so it's doing what God wants it to do.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so he had challenged me, though, that I had grown comfortable and that I needed to re-surrender to be, back into the relationship that I was with him, of willing to do whatever he had asked of me. And that was when I was going that summer. It was in the spring semester we did that. I was going to go that summer back to the islands for a second time. And we were dating, and I put our relationship on the line. And I knew that I had resurrendered because I had grown comfortable of having my spicy Whataburger ketchup, my Chick-fil-A sauce, all the comforts of American life that we love, but over there we won't have. And I went on this trip before and during, praying and fasting, asking the Lord to call me. And I really wanted that Saul on the Damascus Road experience, to know that I was called. Whenever the power goes out, the water isn't running. I wanted to know that I was called. That way I could lean on that. But he didn't speak. And it wasn't until after the trip, when I was on a men's retreat with Chi Alpha students, where I was reading a phenomenal book called Seeking Allah, Finding Jesus by Nabil Qureshi.
I have that book in our bookstore,
It's
church.
So good.
It is worth it. That book is what changed my calling. I finished reading it, close it, and I'm wiping away a little tear of reading Nabil's story, finding faith in Jesus. I was like, Lord, I need a moment to process, so I'm going to do the most mind-numbing thing I can think of and get on Instagram for a second. And as soon as I open up Instagram, a missionary that I follow that has a secret account in Iraq has the call to prayer going off, seeing a Muslim holiday happening. And the Lord began to speak to me again, and I said, Jesus, what are you trying to say? And he so kindly and gently said, do you want to go to Africa, and do you want to go with her? And I was like, yes, to both of those. And so right after she got back, she shared all of her experiences on her trip. I shared mine, and she was the first one to say she wanted to get married, and we went and looked at rings that week when she got back.
That's exciting. Wow. So, what I'm learning from this is when you have 2 young adults that are seeking God first with your whole heart, like, yes, you're interested in each other and the interest is there, but like you kept like, I'm doing this. I mean, I know this is what God's called me to do. But you're seeking him too.
Yeah, I didn't
He
want to stand
speaks
in
to
the way.
you, and he makes this union happen, and it's a beautiful thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Be faithful to God, and he's going to provide what we need.
Yes. Yes.
And, to go to this place, which is 99% Muslim, I think to go alone as a woman would be really hard. It's going to be so much better to have a partner, a partner with you, in prayer and life. just wow. So you're going, we can't tell where it is. It's on the Swahili coast. What will you do? Like, because you do, it's like subversive work that you're going to be doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can share.
Yeah, go.
This thing doesn't
Let's
want
see if I can tighten it. There we go. Okay. Yes, we will be, first of all, we'll be learning the language there, which is Swahili. If you don't know what Swahili is, go watch The Lion King, because it's all throughout The Lion King.
Hakuna Matata.
Hakuna Matata.
It means
no worries. So we'll be learning that language when we arrive. And while we're doing that, we'll also be a part of an English school that they have planted there. So the islands we're going to, there's 2 main islands. And the larger island, so we're on the smaller island, but the larger island, they have the same kind of process happening over there. Also we like to say 99.8% Muslim, because there's 15 believers on that island. And there are no believers. And we are just so excited to see what the Lord can do on the island. And so we are going to use the same thing that they are doing on the main island. And we're going to use it, transfer it over there, which is an English school. Do you want to talk about the English school?
Yeah, the English school is just a way that we can be there. We'll be on student visas and, again, learning culture and language, but we'll be helping serve in the English school where we get to teach, but also at the end of every day, we'll have a time of practicing our English with the people that are learning, right? And they'll be also probably helping us with our Swahili, but we'll have a question on a board that will lead us in conversation. And questions will say something like, what do you put your hope in? Where do you find joy? And as believers, we have an answer that gets us straight into the gospel.
Yes, yeah.
So do they ask you those questions, or do you ask? They ask you.
So the whole hope is for them to practice their English. So
conversational.
So just be conversational with them. So it's kind of turns into a small group where you sit for 15 minutes and you just talk. And most of the time, like we've both got to be a part of, it's called Banda time. And it is wonderful because you're just sitting there having conversations, and it opens up, takes the pressure off, and just opens up to conversations that can lead to Jesus. So
That's awesome.
yeah.
So, and Muslim people are, pretty religious people. And I have learned through other missionaries we've had that they're happy to talk about God.
Yes.
You can easily talk to them about God, and then they're curious often about Jesus too.
Yes, very often they love to share their faith, and they are very excited to share their faith. They, especially where we're going, they're very devout, and study and know their scriptures. And so when you mention anything about Jesus, and they believe Jesus was a prophet, so they respect him as a man. But if you mention anything about Christianity, they immediately have all these questions, especially about the Trinity. They just can't wrap their minds around.
Or even about the humanity of Jesus. That your God went to the restroom? Like, we've been asked that before.
And so those are great questions, because it's not a question you can just answer right there. It's like, that's a great question. Would you come and read with me? And so our goal at the end of those conversations is to get someone to come and read the New Testament with us and read the Gospels and see it for themselves through a different lens than what they've ever seen, because we're walking them through it. So
That's so wonderful.
yeah.
So, right here, church, we need to keep Kevin and Brittanie in our prayers. There's another missionary family with a young son. We have played a video from them on a Sunday throughout the year. If you remember, but they're there, so they will be coming alongside. It'll be so much better, I think, to have 5 of you.
Yes.
I know you have a team on the larger island, right? There's some people.
Yes.
But yeah, it's so nice when you have a few more people
Oh, yes.
that are like-minded and that are with you, that are in spirit and in theology, but then to know that you're going to have people in West Texas praying for you, and in El Paso, Texas.
Yes. And we
Praying
know that
for
it
you.
works, and we're so grateful for it.
Because you mentioned in a meeting that we had the other day, a group of us, that this island where you're going was the birthplace of witchcraft.
Yes.
So I would have never thought that it was way over there on that island that was the birthplace.
Yeah.
How did that come about? Do you know the history?
I don't necessarily know much of the history. The missionaries that have been there for years have just brought that up to us, so we're aware of the spiritual darkness because coupling not only witchcraft but Islam together.
Yeah.
So, and are the witchcraft doctors Muslim? So it's
it's very interesting.
Yes and no.
Because in Islam, like witchcraft is a no-no. And so, but it's just a very cultural thing on the island of like, well, if Allah doesn't answer your prayers, then you go to the witch doctor.
okay.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of what we see a lot. We've been near a witch doctor's house and there's like trees that you can sacrifice to for fertility and all these different things that we are not used to seeing here in America. Very different kind of spiritual warfare that happens. And when you pair that with Islam, you can feel it. Like when you know and walk with Jesus, have the Holy Spirit in you, when you step on the island, it is like there is something else happening here that is just thick.
Yeah.
It's tangible.
Yeah. Oh, I can't reiterate enough how we need to be surrounding them with prayer.
Yes.
Because, they're stepping into Satan's territory.
Yes.
He owns that island.
He does.
Islam, witchcraft. He's like, no, you're not coming here.
Yeah.
But God is sending you there.
Yes.
So you're going with a greater power
Yes.
in you.
Yes. Yeah.
Absolutely.
But I still know from other missionaries we've had that it can be pretty intense, the spiritual warfare that will surround you.
Yeah.
So it's so important that we remember to pray for Kevin and Brittanie, and not only them, but remind me the name of the other couple that's there.
Paul and Sam.
Paul and Sam. Yeah. We want to pray for them too. These couples are right there, doing this work for Christ, working to win people to, the good news.
Yes.
I mean, Jesus
Yes.
is the good news.
He is. And it is so sweet to watch when they grasp it. Because our friends that are believers on the island, I mean, they grew up, all they knew was Islam. And they didn't know that there was any other option. And then they step into following Jesus. And even though their lives are often threatened, they are still so just taken aback by Jesus and the sacrifice that
Full of joy.
Yes.
So are they
full of
able
joy.
to be open on the island with their people, or are they cautiously open?
I would say that they're open.
They are.
Like
Everybody knows they're Christians.
Yeah, they've sacrificed a lot. I mean, they've lost jobs.
Yes.
And they're willing to pay the price for the church to be built.
Yeah.
And it's
Praise
incredible.
God. Oh, God
They're living
bless
out
them.
they're living out the book of Acts.
And
right now.
their heart, because we've had a few people ask, well, why don't y'all take them from the island? And their heart is they want to see the island one to Jesus. So they want to be missionaries to their own people. And they are so faithful to be there. And men who are living out a modern day version of Acts, like, oh my goodness.
How many people are they're on the bigger island?
A little over 1 million on that island.
And then how many are on the island where you guys
500,000.
Okay.
So half a million.
Wouldn't it be great if this little island was the first island that turned from Muslim to
Oh,
Christian?
Oh, my
yes.
goodness.
We
God
are
give you
believing
favor.
for it. Yes. And
Oh,
we're
that'd be so
in it for the long run. Like whatever the Lord has, we trust him in that. But we want to see people come to know Jesus. And we've seen it with the men that are on the other island. It took 15 years to see one come to faith.
Yeah.
that is a long haul.
A long
Yes.
You
time.
have to be committed.
Yes.
The ground is hard.
Oh,
Yes.
yes. And you got to plow and you got to pray. Like
Yeah.
really ask the Lord to soften hearts.
Yeah.
But after one came, it's been 5-6 years since that. And now there's 15. So
Good.
Yeah.
we're seeing the momentum and knowing that, man, the Lord will build his church, and whatever the cost, like we want to see that. So,
Amen.
yeah.
So a little bit about the island. You said if we watch The Lion King, that's the language. So is that kind of
Yeah.
like what the islands are like? The Lion King? Or is
Good
that
question.
more on the main?
The biggest animal is a monkey.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Oh, okay.
no.
So the lions are on the main.
Yeah.
They're on the main.
The
continent.
safari-like stuff is not on the
Which
island.
is funny because when the Lord gave me the burden for Africa, of course, what I was envisioning was the Lion King. I was like, it's going to be in the safari, and we're on a little island that has beautiful beaches and beautiful
nice.
just scenery. But it was not the Africa that I thought it was going to be.
So the
But
biggest is a monkey, like
biggest is a
like a
monkey.
little monkey, not
Oh,
like
a
an
little
ape,
monkey,
or
okay.
like a little guy.
so. And is it? What's the weather? Is it warm always?
Oh, we will be sweating
Okay.
often.
often.
I think we like to say that it's 100% humidity 100% of the time.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, my curly hair would be like.
Yeah, they only have 2 seasons, wet and dry. So
Okay, so they do have a dry season.
They do, but that's the hot season. And
Oh.
so
yeah,
yeah, so that is when there isn't any rain to kind of relieve from the heat. And so yes, you get more humidity in the wet season, but you get the rain to cool you off. So
So you're coming from America, and your favorite hamburgers and all
Oh,
of those
yes.
things. But you're going to a little island off the east coast of Africa. Like they don't have probably fast food restaurants. So tell us a little bit about the culture that you're going to be stepping into.
There are
Like your
not-
groceries, what's happening there?
So there are not fast food restaurants. My dad asked me that the other day. He
did.
said, "What restaurants will you have?" And I said,
well, there's restaurants, but not like that.
they're like little local restaurants, and normally the restaurants will sell 1 or 2 things, and so you can go and get. Like my favorite thing I've told everybody this week is kachori. It's like these fried mashed potato balls that have a bunch of spices in it. It's the spice capital of the world, and so we will not be short of spices.
So you can flavor anything.
Oh, yes.
Oh,
Fun
and
to
it's
eat.
so
Okay.
flavorful. And I've never had anything on the island I didn't like.
Yeah.
Do they have? Is it cows or what kind of meat? do
They
you
have cows, but to picture it, they're not the most healthy cows. You can see their ribs, and so like when you're walking,
And the chickens.
and the
The chickens are
chickens,
scrawny.
they're very scrawny.
What do they eat? What kind of meat?
They eat cow. They'll eat
Chicken, a lot of seafood,
a lot of seafood
Oh,
because
yeah,
they're
'cause
on an
you're
island.
surrounded.
They'll eat like lamb and
Yeah,
goat, a lot of goat. And so just whatever is accessible, but when they don't, so that's one of the things is we won't have access to a whole lot of protein. And
Yep.
so we'll have a lot of rice, a lot of beans, a
lot
lot
of
of
fruit.
potatoes, a lot of fruit. So a very starchy, carby diet.
Yeah.
You get milk.
Yes, you can get milk. It's
But-
different though.
Yeah, you go get raw, unpasteurized milk. We'd have to pasteurize it ourselves. Things like that.
Yeah. So
Well, there's a whole movement in America
For raw
where you
milk.
go into raw.
yeah.
It's better for you, but you have to use it within a short amount of time.
Yes,
For
yes.
Sure.
So it'll just be a different, like we'll just live life differently, and
Maybe
we'll-
have some chickens and
Yeah.
have your eggs. That'll,
Yep.
an egg is almost a perfect food.
Yeah,
yes,
because-
and
Vitamins and protein and all that.
yeah, we'll probably plant a garden to have different kinds of.
That'd be fun.
We know
spices
our
and stuff.
friends that are already there, the other island's an only 15, 20-minute flight, so they have a deep freezer. They'll go to the bigger island, get meat, and bring it back.
Oh, so on the
Yes.
bigger island.
There's a lot
So
more
are
availability.
will you guys be part of the team that's on the bigger island? Are you an extended team?
It has been in the past, but now they've started to separate a little more so that
Okay.
there can be more of a focus on both islands.
Okay.
But yeah, they're kind of like just kind of a support system that we have.
We'll work together. and
20-minute plane ride away. And so we'll visit back and forth and we'll go there. The main island is a little more civilized, has
a lot more developed.
a lot, more developed, has more
Bigger
restaurants
stores,
and stores.
Actual
and stuff.
stores
Do you will you have automobiles on your island?
We will. A lot. I mean, you can get vehicles. A lot of times you get them from Japan and have them shipped over. And then there's a lot of public transport and a lot of transport by your feet. So a lot of walking and
Bicycle, maybe?
bicycle would be hard because of how bumpy the roads are. But
Some
I don't
people
know
do.
if
I've seen a couple.
oh yeah, but yeah, they are all like they love the repeated words. So like a dala is like a bus, a piki piki is a motorcycle. There's what tuk is like a little bitty.
So you
car.
said earlier that the language is phonetic, so it's easy for English learners to learn
Praise the
Swahili.
Lord.
It's not
Yeah.
so
Praise the
difficult.
Lord, yes. Yes, we are so grateful, and we'll
That's
learn.
way easier than Chinese that you were maybe.
I know. Thank you, Lord.
Yeah, the whole new alphabet.
Yes.
Oh man.
Yeah.
And sound. Chinese is definitely tonal. I
Oh,
had a
my
Chinese
goodness,
lady that
yes.
lived with us for a few years in Ohio.
Wow.
Very different.
Oh, yes.
language.
Yeah, and we have friends who are learning languages all over the world and
Yeah.
learning new alphabets and all the tonal things that come with that. And we're like, thank you, Lord, for Swahili.
So one more thing.
Yes.
But what about your living? Like some of our missionaries, like on the main continent at least, they buy compounds, and so all of the missionary team lives in the compound. Is it similar on these two islands, or will you find your own place?
A mix.
Yeah, on the main island, we see that quite often because compounds are pretty popular.
Yeah.
On the smaller island, not so much. It's more village.
Yeah, more of a rural community.
And so we'll live close to our team, especially for the first 2 years that we're there. And then...
And what kind of living is
Yeah.
it? Like, is it apartment buildings? Is it?
So more than likely it'll be a home. We don't have anything ironed out yet. It'll be closer until we get there because.
But they do have like homes,
Yeah.
maybe
Yeah.
stucco or something. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm trying to imagine.
Yeah,
I
that
would say
or
similar to what's here in El Paso.
Yeah,
like that
in the
kind of-
Southwest. maybe,
some cinder blocks maybe or whatever
Yeah.
maybe. But as foreigners, we're actually by the government not allowed to own property. But luckily, we have the believer that we do know that is local, that buys and owns a lot of the property that we would rent from. And so we're really grateful that the Lord called us to a really affordable place. Once we're there,
Yes.
we'll have a 3 to 4 bedroom house that we will pay anywhere between $50 to $75 American a month for,
Yeah.
which is really cheap.
Yeah. Wow.
Yes.
So the one other thing, I have dogs and cats, and I mean, I have chickens,
Oh,
so I have eggs.
There you go.
But like, do people on the island have pets like that? Would you, or is that because you guys have to itinerate every few years
Yes.
to leave it behind?
So that's been something that, like, the littlest thing that I've been like, like this is
Yeah.
Cat.
we don't have like I have wanted a dog for so
For a
long,
long time.
but it's in the Muslim faith, dogs are seen as unclean.
Oh, that's right.
And so to touch a dog, you're unclean for like 7 days.
Granted, we have seen a couple dogs
There's
on the island before.
Been a couple, and there are a few that you can have as like guard dogs. So yes, we will not have a dog unless he's a guard dog. But there are 1.5 million cats on the island because they're also seen as like holy and all the things. And so,
Interesting.
yes.
How do they see those monkeys?
you
You
know,
can get a monkey for
maybe
a cat.
get a monkey. I don't know.
I have seen a guy walking with one on his shoulder
Yes,
before, so
yes.
maybe.
But yeah, so we'll probably have a cat to help keep away all the little critters. But
Mount mice. Yeah.
which is really funny because neither of us
We're
are
not cat
really
people,
but
but
we're like, we'll probably become cat people
Probably have to
to
be.
have a pet.
Yeah.
Cats out where I live in the country that are around in the neighborhood are for sure have plenty to eat.
Oh yes.
The mice.
Yes.
My cats are indoors, so I don't have that problem. But.
Yeah. We'll figure it out. And the team that's on the island, they were the same way. They didn't really like cats, and
Yeah.
they have had many cats. And so
Oh well, it's so exciting. New adventures ahead for you.
Yes.
yes.
When do you think you'll be heading out? Your goal is
Yeah. The goal that we've set for ourselves is the end of January 30th.
2025. Okay.
2025. Yeah.
It's right
Yeah.
here.
Yeah, it's close. The main reason why is our team leaders will be actually flying back the day after Christmas, spending time actually helping with some Chi Alpha retreats for the winter retreats. We'll both be doing that, and then we could possibly, if we're funded, everything's approved, fly back with them, which would be incredible. And we're really close. We're almost fully funded. We're 95% funded monthly and about 38-ish% one time. And so we're getting really close.
Praise God.
Yeah. I was telling somebody earlier today, for a long time, January 30th has been really far. But now it's really, really close. And
Yeah,
we're
you'll be leaving your family.
Yes.
Because your family is in Lubbock.
my family's in Amarillo.
Oh, in Amarillo.
Yes.
Okay,
And then
so-
his family's in Houston. But
Okay.
yeah, it's a big, like we talked about this a few months ago of we've always counted the cost for ourselves and known that it's costly to go, but had never really until recently thought about the cost for our families and our future family. Like when we have kids someday, like life won't be the same that my nieces and nephews have got to experience with their grandparents. And so it's been a really sweet process, though, of walking our parents through that, and even walking ourselves through that, knowing, okay, Lord, you've asked us to pay a price, but thank you for giving grace to our families in this as well. And
and your families are supporting you.
Yes, my family loves Jesus, and Kevin's family is getting there.
Yeah.
Does your family understand what you're doing? Like, do they?
I think it's starting to make a little more sense, but it's like I said, my family, they didn't necessarily grow up much in the church. So missions, the whole idea of it is a little foreign.
Yeah.
But I've been doing it now. This is my 9th year, if we count the time with Chi Alpha. And so I think they're starting to really see it. And they've seen life change from students that I've met and have brought into my life and into their lives. And so I think it's starting to happen. And we're just really believing for them to truly come to know Jesus and what that means.
That's a prayer request then for us to pray with Kevin about, for sure, his family. That through all this, that would be a beautiful thing. You know, and God, he wants them.
Oh, yes.
He
does.
He wants them just like he wants the people on the island. So.
I said one more, but I actually have one
that's
more
okay.
question. Because I would like any young adult out there to understand how easy it is to become an MA. And an MA means a missionary associate. Or maybe it's a part-time. How can you test if maybe does God want me to do this?
Yeah.
Like how?
That's great.
How does that work?
Go on a short-term trip.
Yeah, do it.
And what is a short-term trip?
So
Like
a
what?
week, 2 weeks, if you really want to push it, go for a few months.
Yeah.
So I have a friend who's going 3 months to northern Africa this summer.
A guy in my small group from Texas Tech just got back from 3 months on the island we're going to this summer.
But and us walking students through, like, we've been small group leaders. We always get to push these and like really be excited because we love them. And I've gone on mission trips since I was 15. And that didn't mean I was going to the place I was called. But I think that sometimes we get a little like, I don't know if the Lord's asking me to go on this trip for a week or 2 weeks. And it's like, sometimes it's just as simple as going and seeing. And if the Lord calls you, wonderful. And if he doesn't, that's also okay. Now you know how to pray for those kind of people and those kind of situations in a different way than you would have ever been able to. So you don't have to be called to be a missionary to go on a short-term trip. But if that's something you're thinking about long-term, go and see different places. And
always going like that broadens your worldview.
Yes.
Like God has people in every nation on the earth.
Oh my goodness,
Absolutely.
yes.
And it helps we Americans to get out of our very comfortable zones and go places and see the rest of the world and see the need in the rest of the world. You know, and you never know. Maybe it's just that you're going to love missions and support it.
Yeah.
Because giving to reach, we can support missionaries like Kevin and Brittanie and the Freemans who are there right now. But we need you to be faithful and to be faithful in prayer, you know, faithful in prayer, praying. We've laid out the needs, that very real needs that they need to know that people back here are standing with them in prayer for sure. But yeah, getting outside your comfort zone, going, you never know what God's going to do.
And I would just add that going on a short-term trip doesn't sign your name on any contract or whatsoever.
No.
And that going is a part of the Great Commission. We were told to go. And so even if it's going just for 2 weeks.
Or 3 months like you, like a summer. You know,
I'll tell briefly just a very short story of the church on the bigger island that started, that now is 15 men, started because of a short-term trip. Someone on a short-term trip shared the gospel with the man that was the first believer.
Wow, praise God.
And he said, I'll read the New Testament, and found Jesus. And because of that, like maybe you go on a short-term trip and you don't change a continent, but going on a short-term trip can definitely change you.
Yes, it definitely can.
When we arrived the first year on the main island, one of the workers said, "You think you're going to change Africa, but Africa is going to change you." And it was so true. Like, I knew that's where I was going, but I had 8 other people who are not going to the islands. But I have seen life change in every single one of them since that trip. And so it is just a great way to broaden your horizons and see Jesus in a different way.
You know, church, last year we had planned a trip to this small island off the Swahili coast, but it didn't make. But now you're meeting firsthand the face of a set of our missionaries that are on the ground. So maybe we can plan another one.
Yeah, come visit.
Because they need us. And wouldn't it be amazing to take a trip to the Lion King territory?
Yeah.
So let's remember to pray. Thank you so much.
Thank
you. Thank you.
God bless y'all. I pray he goes before and behind you and hems you in on every side.
Yes.
God
Thank you
bless
so much.
Yes, thank you.
See you next time, church. Bye-bye.